There's a spell combo in Hogwarts Legacy that is so ridiculous it can quite literally crash your entire system if you're not careful. I'm constantly surprised by the sheer number of creative ways in which you can defeat your enemies in this game, which is why in today's video we're going to take a look at even more super strong endgame builds that you should definitely try out. Now, starting things off, let's talk about this pretty crazy Crucio spell combo that if you pull off the right way can deal some incredible damage. It looks really awesome and it's an amazing way to take down at least 2 enemies at the same time. Basically, you have the Crucio Mastery unlock, which will let you easily spam the curse mechanic with the red bolts that will shoot out of the main target when you attack it while under its effect. Of course, to make this even easier upon you, you're going to want to combine this with a focus potion so that the cooldown with all of these spells, especially the Cruciatus Curse, is now going to be mere seconds. So if you ever wondered what happens when you Crucio 2 targets at the same time and then hit just one of them, well, this is pretty much it. The first bolt that jumps out of the main target you just hit will now jump straight towards and hit the second Crucio enemy, which will then cause that one to spawn another projectile that will further bounce back and go into the initial target. Have these enemies close enough and it can result in an endless feedback loop where one bolt will continuously bounce and generate between these 2 enemies until the effect wears off. Of course, the more you hit any of these targets with normal wand attacks, the more bolts will spawn, which can create an even more intense effect for a much higher damage. No joke, this is so strong that if the enemies get too close to one another, or if you hit just one of them too many times, this can cause a huge number of bolts to continue to spawn until your entire system drops to a crawl. I actually overdid it a few times, which caused massive FPS drops as well as crashing my entire system, but yeah, if you don't do that, you're going to be all good. That being said, it's a very strong combo and I managed to make it even more absurd using the Unforgivable trait rank 3, which significantly increases damage dealt against cursed targets, so you will want to actually stack all of these on your entire gear set. And combine this with the Blood Curse talent, you have a build that deals very high continuous damage, and it also makes it share all of this between its affected targets. In this case, you'll want to pop a quick focus potion, cast Crucio on the first target, and then a couple of seconds later cast it on the second one. And from this point on, just do a bunch of regular attacks for this glorious outcome, and that's pretty much it. At number 2, Mandrakes should really get more recognition for their amazing group wipe capabilities, assuming of course that you have a proper setup for them. With just a couple of points invested, you can turn this into a very long channeled AoE damage that will both stun and eventually even kill every single enemy in a very large area. For the best results, I got the Headache perk, which greatly increases the damage as well as the duration of the stun effect that the Mandrakes have. Not only will this give you a significant damage buff, but its duration is now much longer than before. You can make it deal over 1k damage per tick as well, even on the hard difficulty, with the following traits available. Again, there's going to be a couple of choices over here, so I went over both of them. You can either go with Deafening at rank 3, which significantly buffs damage specifically for Mandrakes, but you can also pick Herbology 3, which does so for all of the plants. And again, as I've said, I run a few tests, and for example, in the case of the Troll enemy, with the same build running a full Deafening perk setup, the damage was around 586 per each tick. Meanwhile, with the Herbology 3 trait, it was as high as 668. So this confirms yet again that for all plant damage, Herbology is by far going to be your best option in terms of pretty much all the traits. And once this setup is done, even hard difficulty won't be enough to prevent you from one-shotting entire groups of enemies. With this, you can do anywhere between 6.7 all the way to 13,000 overall damage depending on the enemy type. Another big advantage is that the very long stun duration helps a ton, especially against troll enemies, which gives you plenty of time to squeeze in some of your other spell combos and finish off the job. Now it's time to talk about stealth. This was one of the first ways in which I played the game, and its one-shot potential only becomes better as you get more upgrades. First, you'll want to make sure you get the Petrificus Totalus Mastery, so now it becomes an AoE attack instead, which can be used on multiple enemies at the same time when they are pretty close to one another. I also added the Binding trait rank 3, which significantly increases the damage with this attack, and also stacked my entire gear with this trait only. And the result is pretty wild. As you can see, again, the footage here is on the hard difficulty. Not that there's anything special about that, but even with the 50% damage reduction from it, the damage is high enough to pretty much one-shot everything. And yes, this includes trolls, and if it doesn't, they are left with like 5 to 10% HP at most, so you can just finish them off quickly. It's also great because now you don't have to worry about when enemies are too close to one another, since a single Petrificus Totalis will stun and one-shot every single one of them in a quite decent area. But it doesn't always go as planned, and you might get spotted by certain enemies, which is why this will work very well with the invisibility potion that you can grab early. Unlike Disillusionment, the potion does remove you from the sight even in combat, so this means you can quickly cast another Petrificus Totalis right as the enemies are still being alerted. In fact, if you're fast enough or if you invested enough in extending the potion's duration, you can cast multiple one-shot stuns on the same target as long as you are under the invisibility potion effect and eventually fully get them downed. Like, I even tested this against entire groups of enemies. They will even lose you out of line of sight if you take down the ones that have been alerted, and then if you pay attention to the remaining ones, they will just look around not knowing where you are. So totally something that you should try out. Now, moving on, of course, there's many other ways in which you can take down enemies in very flashy and creative ways, no pun intended, but one of my other favorites is definitely the Thunder Brew potion, which with a few buffs can become quite awesome. First, you'll want the extended damage and range from the potency upgrade in the Room of Requirement line, since this is going to extend it even further and deal much higher damage. Second, you might also want to combine this with a Maxima potion for some really crazy damage, especially if you also buffed that one using its own potency upgrade. And I ran a few tests with and without the Maxima combination, and I'm happy to say that Thunder Brew is strong enough on its own to one-shot many of the normal sized targets, dealing over 2k damage per hit. But combining it with the Maxima potion that also got its potency upgrade, the 2k now turns into well over 9,000, so now you're looking at an almost one-shotting boss type enemy build that is not going to have a problem with anything. The duration was already pretty long, but now that the range is even bigger, it means very few enemies can make it to you unless you're playing on the higher setting. Also, another big advantage is that it completely breaks shields and deals full damage through them, so you literally don't have to worry about anyone. Of course, there are some enemies that can counter it quite well, especially the undead, which are only weak to fire spell damage, but outside of those, there isn't really any other issue with it. I did test this out with something like the Edurus upgrade as well to become fully immortal, so you can just pop that, put these two ones, and just stay there in the middle of the enemy pack and have all of them one-shotted eventually. Definitely let me know down below if you found any other interesting spell combos like these, or if you have used the ones that I just showed you. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, a like on it would be really awesome, and if you really enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe and activate that notification bell. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.